Hey guys, my name is RagingRaptor and I welcome you to a new World of Tanks video, and today we'll have a look at a new tank which appeared in the Supertest in 1.0.2, and this is the Object 279 Early, former to be known as the Object 726, but apparently they decided to make it a version of the Object, what is it, 279, yeah, which is called the Russian UFO, or unknown flight object. Oops, I probably need to give it the emphasis object because otherwise Google won't really know what I mean. And it is this tank. As you can see, double track layout as the Object 279 early in the game. But other than that, it doesn't really look that similar. The interesting part is though that Wargaming already made a video about this tank themselves, so you can maybe look it up. It's really interesting about its history. But today we have a look at the early version, how Wargaming is calling it. And we do not know yet what this tank exactly is going to be. I do have my fair share of ideas what Wargaming could do with this vehicle, but I give you that assumption or the prediction at the end of the video, because right now I think it is best to dive into the stats of these vehicles. With 2,400 hit points, it is quite a healthy tier 10 tank in my opinion. It has 850 horsepower, a mass of 60 tons, and the power to weight ratio 14.17. This power to weight ratio is pretty decent. It is roughly the same as the one, oh my god, where did my Google Chrome window, there it is. It's roughly the same as the AMX M4. It is worse, but it is not too bad, and this is why I'm taking right now the AMX M4 as an example to give you a better idea. Right now, as you can see, just the gun makes slight difference on the AMX M4. But yeah, 14.17 HP to ton ratio is not too bad. It will accelerate roughly similar to the AMX M4. The top speed is the same. The reverse speed with 13 kilometers per hour is pretty darn slow. Imagine this is how slow the T95 back in the days went forward. So yeah, hull traverse is 30 degrees per second, and the turning speed is also almost 30 degrees per second. What is interesting though is the terrain resistance values. Usually those are the ones which kind of show you how easily a tracked vehicle can go through different land types. Soft or ground types, soft, medium and hard ground, where hard ground is something like asphalt, soft, medium being something like grass, like ice, and soft being something like mud or even water. So the interesting thing is that usually in real life, the more surface area your tracked vehicle has, the better those terrain resistance values should be, because you have a bigger space or a bigger surface. The whole weight of this vehicle can basically put average out on. Let's call it like that. Like you want to have a decent, you don't want on every single spot, on every square inch or every square centimeter, you want to have a small amount of weight of your tank being on, or a small amount of percentage. With a high surface area where your tracks are laying, with 4 tracks for example, you should have a pretty darn good terrain resistance. But I think as a balancing factor that is not the case here, because even though the AMX M4 is way heavier, I think, where is it? It should be standing somewhere. I'm pretty sure it has to be heavier, otherwise the higher horsepower wouldn't make any sense with the same amount of power to weight ratio. So where can we find the weight? There you go. It is 80 tons, and this one is 60. It still has better terrain resistance. The AMX M4 has better terrain resistance. On hard ground, it's the same, but on medium grounds, it's a lot worse. The same goes for soft grounds. I know it is a little bit of balancing involved in those soft stats, but still, I'm not a really big fan of that, because let's be honest, it doesn't make any sense that this tank has such bad terrain resistance values. Enough ranting though, let's have a look at the fuel range, which is 400 meters, quite a decent average. I'm playing my AMX M4 with optics, so It's pretty nice to see that this tank has 400 meters of view range, making it much more comfortable to reach those 445 meters of base view range. Now to the armor. The armor is quite special in my opinion. 170 millimeters frontal, 130 on the side, and 90 millimeters in the back, and the turret is 300, 140, and 90 respectively. The problem is we don't have any damage models at the moment because many damage model viewers are broken since introduction of 1.0. Luckily, it somewhat works again on tanks.gg, but this tank is always in the Supertest, so it's not on tanks.gg. GG! No, what is interesting though, but we can do maybe some predictions of how strong this armor will be. As you can see, it has kind of the nose of a 907. So if we have a look at the 907, which is way worsely armored, as you can see, it looks, if you get what I mean, it looks pretty similar. Just one noticeable difference is obviously this part up here is much stronger. And it is a little bit less angled when we, oops, I don't want to close that. If you have a side view of it, okay, this is a little bit upside, so maybe we have one directly from the side. Sadly enough, it doesn't look like it. Sorry for that. But I think the angle is a little bit worse on the object 279 early. Even though it is strongly armored, it's 170 millimeters, the object 907 has 110 millimeters. The good thing about it is it's such a steep angle that sometimes just a little bit of angling makes this tank ridiculous. Bounce in the frontal plate, and it's almost mandatory to shoot HEAT at it, or premium rounds in general. The difference though is, even though this tank has 140 millimeters of armor, this one has also 100 millimeters, but it's never that effective. Yes, it is flat here, but it's also curved on those spaces right here as well as it is here. But 140 millimeters, even though it is curved, it's not that curved up here at least. But now get this, if we look frontally at the tank, you can see that this tank does not have a lower plate armor, and this is where this tank gets pretty darn strong in my opinion. It misses this low front plate weak spot where you could make something like the same amount of armor but in a flat space, not angled. And in an early iteration, this tank had 200 millimeters of upper front armor. Here you can see old name 276. And I think this is where they had to rebalance it completely, because you don't have a frontal lower plate weak spot, so they have to make this upper front plate weaker to compensate for that. Maybe though, if you could actually look underneath it, the bottom of the tank, usually it is pretty weak. You can see here it is 30 millimeters weak. We can go back to the collision model to give you a better look at it. But there you go, 30 millimeters is not that strong. Even though in many spaces it's pretty darn good angled, it's just 30 millimeters, never going to hold up anything. Might be the same for this tank as well. But another big problem with this tank is that it might be tall. And that's obviously for a reason, because let's be honest, again, the tracks are underneath the tank and not on the side of the tank for the most part. And even though this is the part where you can damage it, everything below or at the track level won't do or should not do any damage to your tank. Many tanks you can detrack with the same with damage. Big problem was the object 257. What was it called? The object 257. There we go. Got my objects mixed up a little bit there. They changed it before they released it to a server. I'm not entirely sure. I do know they changed the lower side armor from what was it? I think it was around 90 millimeters to 45 to 30 millimeters, but then to 45. So yeah, you might have a troubles detracking this vehicle. As you can see, there is nothing in between, and this could be the same thing with this vehicle. You won't be able to detrack this tank with damage reliably. Another big deal is it has a 300 millimeter armor turret, and the only tank which you could compare it that to right now should be the Object 430U, which I think I just closed by accident. No, this is the 907, excuse me for that. There we go. The 430U has a 300 millimeter frontal turret. It's stronger on the side. It's 195 parts wise on the side, and I can't get those things right. But this tank will probably have around here 140 millimeters and a little less weak on the back. It's only 90 millimeters and not 65 millimeters. But the key difference is that this tank, yes, it also have some spaces which are flat compared to the 907, which is also 300 millimeters thick. We go back to the visual model. You can see that this part is way longer flat, while this part goes immediately into a nicely curved shape, meaning that even though they have the same amount of armor, theoretically, this tank will have a much better time bouncing those shells because this is simply flat armor. This is also a point or a problem with the Object 705A. Yes, it is immensely strong when it comes to side scraping, but as soon as people start to shoot a PCR or premium rounds in general, this super flat turret won't do a really good job at bouncing off those shells. So there you have your problem. It's perfectly balanced around premium shells, so even if you angle it, people will tend to have a decent enough time of penetrating it. Even in this angle, you can see you just need to spot on shoot it, and you have around 300 millimeters, 330 millimeters to 300 millimeters of effective armor to penetrate, which most tier 10 heavy tank HE-AT shells have without a doubt. So let's go to the gun, which is the 122mm M62 T2A gun. And for the people which this might sound familiar for, this is roughly the same gun the IS-4 carries, just it has better DPM, it has better aim time, and that's about it. Better DPM and better aim time, but that's already all you need to make the IS-4 really, really sad, because the IS-4 has almost one shot less per minute. That is a hard thing to notice. This is a lot of more damage you can deal out with the Object 279 early. So, what could this tank be? If I have $100 to bet on, I would say that $70 would go on betting that this tank will be a next campaign reward tank like the Object 260 is. We are waiting for something like this, and I think on Gamescom we might get some information about that. And my other idea would be that when you finish both campaigns, you will get the Waffenträger auf E100. But I'm not entirely sure. $30 of, or the rest of my $100 will go on betting if this could be the new tier 10 vehicle for the Russian Tech 3, where they're going to remove the IS-4 or make it a tier 9 tank. Because we already had a look, or already saw that the IS-4 is getting a new look in the test server. Just have to scroll down a little bit. I'm sorry for that. I didn't do yet the video about this special thing they are wanting to change up. Basically, it looks like the Gorilla 15 will get a new look, and maybe even get replaced by another tank. This is what it looked like, and this is how the IS-4 looks. And what is most interesting of when you look at those different vehicles is that most of the time when they are Tech 3 vehicles, you will see them in their stock configuration. And this is a stock configuration. This is the stock D25T gun, and this is a stock turret. You can see this bulb eye over here, which usually the ST1 has, and it is in the stock configuration. So once again, we can have a look at tanks.gg to have a look at how the ST1 looks like in stock and confirm my my idea right here. We take the 701 turret, and you can see there is this bulbous eye. In the visual model, it looks like this, and if we roughly angle it like that, you can see that there is similarities, to be honest. Let's just make it like that. Excuse me. A lot of talking today, so my throat is a little bit screwed over. And now with the stock gun, it pretty darn looks like the same turret. So my prediction is the IS-4 will be tier 9 nevertheless. Maybe the ST1 will be the new tier 10. That is what this picture here is implying. Maybe though, the Object 279 early could also be. But again, this is just a prediction. Anyway, what do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section below, and thank you all so much for your attention. Bye bye!